Hey guys, Darren Kelly, Coach of Wires Pods, and welcome back to another trade mode ahead of round 17. The buys are finally done. It feels like a lifetime ago that we had a full squad of best 22, but it's good to be back, and it'll be interesting to see how a lot of teams and a lot of coaches have progressed over the buys. I know myself, just evaluating my own buy situation, I've had my worst buy scenario for a long, long time. I didn't move rank at all. If anything, I probably moved back just slightly. So that is very unusual for myself, and that just sort of shows where my team's sort of at this year. But it is what it is. But I'll be interested to see whether that was due to a lot of people just sort of sidewaysing a lot of premiums. Like I have been seeing a lot in each of these trade mode videos, I'm seeing a lot of those top end guys just being sidewaysers and trying to just maximize scoring throughout the buys. But our focus and what my focus has always been in my advice to you guys has always been upgrading your side, trying to have a completed team by the end of the buys, so then you come out of the buys, you have a best 22 available to you, so then you're minimizing these minor scores from rookies. So that will be interesting going into this week. So I'm quite keen to see how this week goes, but I'm sure I'll be let down nonetheless, as it has been this year. But let's get straight into a bit of strategy chat. So there's not too much to dive into. I think it's pretty obvious. Most of you guys that watch me regularly would know this already, that it comes down to where you are in your team. So if your team still has rookies on field, your number one priority is still to get those off field. Don't go into these luxury trades where people are looking to jump off of a truck or a dust Cameron, a Noble, stuff like that. You've got to still get the rookies off field. Yes, we have some good, decent rookies that can probably stay, and we'll probably look at those going a little bit forward. But the number one objective is still to jump off these guys and try and get the biggest scores possible, because rookies are great. They can score quite well at, on the best of times, but they're so different to big premiums that can put up these massive ceiling scores each and every week. So that is the main objective from this point onwards. If you don't have a completed team, continue to upgrade your side as quick as possible to get to that. But if you're in a more luxurious position and you have a completed team, your team value is, absolutely skyrocketed and you're absolutely sitting pretty, then yes, you are probably more into the luxury season where you can start to sideways these guys that are underperforming, or jumping off these mid prices that are sort of, that stepping stone for you to get up to those top dogs. So let's, for an example, if you picked up Will Day in the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks and he's your worst midfielder, I'd have no hesitation to look to jump off him and go up to those top dogs like a Baz if you didn't have him, or a Messiah who a lot of people are targeting this week. So those are the type of situations you can be in to look to continue to complete your side, make it the best possible. Because as much as I love All Day, and he's still being managed, and there are going to be some chances that he gets rested or even gets some attention going forward. He is playing Melbourne, so they may look to tag him. So that's just an example of, you got to really look at the matchup for those guys that you think, oh, eventually I want them to go, but is it the right time to do that, or can I get a bigger benefit by jumping off this underpricing Noble and a Darcy Cameron and getting those guys up to a, you know, a Max Gorn and downgrading a Noble to like a Parker or something like that, and that could be a bit of a shuffle that you could make by using those two traits. So you got to really add up and sort of try and predict what those guys are going to score going forward. If not just for a one-way kit, then try and predict what they're going to do going forward and how much that's going to benefit your side going forward. But the safest option is always to jump off the stepping stone guy and getting up to the top dog, because that's going to definitely going to be an upgrade for you. Whereas there's some risk jumping off a Noble and a Darcy Cameron, because they could easily both put 110s on your head this weekend at any point. I think that's very unlikely, but there's definitely always a possibility, because these guys are in that upper echelon of scoring. So that's a little bit of strategy chat. Let's not dive too much into it. I think we all sort of know where we're at this week, but let's just quickly tap off the trade out targets this week. I think it's pretty straightforward again around where we are, but let's just quickly do it for the sake of it. So my number one trade out target is obviously Brent Daniels. He is obviously injured. He's gone for an extended period of time. I think it's 6 to 8 weeks roughly. So yeah, he just needs to go. And it's unfortunate because he is quite cheap. So there's not a huge amount of options that you can really look at. You can sideways him to a few options that we'll talk about in a minute. So which is quite nice, but yeah, you still are having to spend up a little bit to get him to those sort of guys that you're probably wanting in your side. So it does make your other side of the trades quite tricky. So let's just say, for example, if you're looking at trading a Daniels and a Cameron, well, there's no real downgrade from a Cameron to get that money you need from a Brent Daniels to up to, if you don't have a De Gea, that's 200k. If you don't have a Horn Francis, again, 200k. But a lot of us are looking at, a much cheaper option in a Royal Marshall that's only 20k or so more expensive. So you need a little bit of money banked to be able to move off a Darcy Cameron to, say, a Gorn or um, a Jackson if you wanted to go there. We'll talk about the ruck options going forward. And just a bit of a spoiler, I'm not a huge fan of trading ruckman this week. I just don't think there's a clear option that we're looking at. But yeah, we'll dive into that a little bit later. So Daniels is my number one trade at target, obviously. Number two, though, I did still have Sinclair. So if you held on to him last week through all the carnage, then obviously he needs to go. So that's just an obvious number two as well. You do not want to be holding premiums now that are back at best 22. You're just going to be hurting too much. There's no reason to hold him. He had his buy, so you've already missed him for 2 weeks. He's not coming back anytime soon. So you got to trade him out as quickly as possible. So he is my number two. Then I've sort of put a bit of a blanket for number three. I've gone all high value rookies. So this again comes into the strategy chat that if you are still having rookies on field, you need to get them off field. So these guys like Murdoch, Lindsay, Sarong, uh, Cumming, Rechko, Dersma, Lombard, all these guys that have a bit of value on their head, they can absolutely go to get you the trades that you need. You need to be upgrading them as quick as possible. So I think they can all go. I don't think there's any one particular guy that you need to be holding, even if they are performing quite well at the moment. So that's sort of a blanket for number three. And then this sort of suits the top end guys that are up the top end that are in more of luxury season. Then number four, I do have Petrarca. I'd be more than happy to move off him. His role has slightly changed over the last couple of weeks, and we've started to see he dropped some very poor scores over the last month, 70s, 80s, and a dirty 50 against a tough opponent. And he's just not tackling nearly as much as he used to be. 3 tackles in his last 4 matches is just putrid compared to what he was doing at the start of the season, where he was getting regular at a minimum 3 sort of tackles, and he just was hitting the scoreboard. Obviously, getting a lot more marks and a lot more disposals. He's playing a bit more forward, so again, I don't think I need to encourage you too much to be able to trade him out. And I just think we have a lot of cheaper options that are putting their hand up to be a very similar scorer, if not better than what Petrarca can be going forward. So I think it's a one you can easily downgrade him. You can take 50, 60k off a Petrarca's head and be able to use that elsewhere with a bit of extra money in the bank potentially. So Petrarca is my number four. And then Noble is my number five. He has just, it's evident that the role has completely changed for him. He's more on the wing than he has ever been, and back to back very poor scores. Still getting plenty of marks, like 5 and 6 is not too bad, but really just not being used nearly enough in that halfback role. I expected a lower score on the weekend, but a 62 is just very, very poor. And against the Hawks, that's an okay matchup. Would have expected something a lot better there. So that's really disappointing for those that have traded him in the last fortnight, like myself. And yeah, just goes to show that paying up hasn't always worked this year, even though it seems like it has. But yeah, that's more proven scorers than a guy like a John Noble. So bit of a regret trade in there for me. But yes, he can go as well in that option. Really, is there much more really to talk about here? I think it's pretty obvious that you want to trade out the guys like um, Millera. He's still injured for a little while, so I would be moving off him if you're capable. I don't think he's a top liner, so again, it doesn't take you much to go from him up to those top dogs. So I'd absolutely be doing that. Roby falls into that same camp as value rookies. Same with Cook. Banks, I'll put him there as well. Like I've after the fail last week, I'd be more than happy to trade off him if it does give you the flexibility you're looking for. Yeah, just correcting that poor mistake. So I'd be happy to do that. And then again, most of these guys are rookies or guys that need to be traded out regardless. So let's move on and get into some more exciting stuff and go into the defensive line. I think this is where a lot of people are looking this week, and there are some questions to be had. So my number one trading target for the defenders is none other than Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera. He's been in some great form recently since he's moved into halfback. He's got 5 tons on the trot. And some very mixed opponents there. Like, Carlton's obviously hit some form recently and are one of the tougher opponents going around. Same with Sydney, they've always been pretty tough as well. But he has had some nicer ones, like obviously the Eagles and the Western Bulldogs, who are the nicest of the bunch at this stage. But yeah, with no Jack Sinclair as well, that only adds more market share available to a guy like a Nasai. It makes it even more focused on him to get him the ball rather than, having that secondary person to be able to go to like a Jack Sinclair. So he's going to be demanding the ball more than ever. So I'm just really fruitful. So I'm really hopeful that he can be that option that we want. Now, the only thing that scares me about Nasai is he's got some tough matches coming up. So next two, I think he'll be perfectly fine. He the Essendon really easy matchup. This should be a potentially captain option going forward. And against the Port Adelaide, they are typically a tougher matchup, but we saw what he was able to do against Port Adelaide earlier in the year. He put up a 139 where he didn't receive any attention in that game. So uh, whether they look to correct that or not would be interesting, but I'm expecting him to have another a pretty big field day against those two. So his next fortnight is pretty strong. So that's why I'm looking at trading him in. But from that point onwards, it becomes a bit trickier. So he only goes into Geelong, probably cops a bit of a Mullen tag, more than likely. So you just got to cop that on chin. North are a bit easier than they have been towards the start of the season, but they always have that potential to use Finn to do some tagging. Same with the Sinkum. So have they played earlier so far this season? No, they haven't. Or potentially he missed it throughout his injury. So that will be interesting to see whether they look to tag him in that one. James Jordan, again, potentially can go to him. He's the obvious tag target. Did they play earlier? He did, and he still put up a 105. So uh, that's some good signs. And then Carlton, the following after that, put up a 104, and we know he copped attention in that one as well. So there's potentially 4 tags in a row from round 19 to round 22, which is the only sort of flag. But the way that my strategy comes into it now, that we're sort of very late into the season, is that I want to be trading in the best player possible each and every week. I want that pop score, that guy that can go 140 and give you that big ceiling score each and every week. And that's what Nasai is going to give me over the next 2 weeks, I hope. And then we may be able to have that discussion in 2 weeks' time that, okay, Nasai is coming into a run of tags. Do we look to trade him out at that time to be able to, again, maximize our scoring, not have to worry about potential tags? Maybe we even have a 23rd premium that we can look to just, have a look at Nasai. How'd he go? Okay, he got tagged. He was on the 60. Let's throw in, a Will Day or whoever that 23rd premium is for you. You can look at those different options. So we are in a bit more of a luxury state when it comes to the back end of the season because we have different options. Our team's in a much stronger position to be able to move off these guys rather than just copying on the chin. So I want the side for the next 2 weeks, but in 2 weeks' time, we can have that discussion. Do we look to trade him out rather than take the pain for this next 2 weeks where he may put up 250, 300 points on your head in that time, and then then you get the rewards in 4 or 5 weeks' time when he's had a couple tag games and he's probably gone a bit unders for what you expect. I just much rather be on the train and then I'm able to hop off the train going forward. But there's always risks to that as well because we're going to have some forced trades. If there's any record of the season, like it has been, there's going to be more forced trades. So that you may not be able to jump off an Asaya week one of his tags. You just have to sort of evaluate where your team is at and what is happening each and every week. But just got to keep that in mind when trading in Asaya. So he is my obvious number one. And again, he will be a pretty big captain option. Number two is his teammate in Cal Wilkie. He is the cheaper option. He's nearly 200k cheaper for a guy that has nearly gone 100 for the year. And we know how good he was to start the season where He was just dominating. I don't know if I can exactly get what his average was back then, but he was averaging 115 at his peak after the first 17 rounds. Just phenomenal for a guy that we typically don't like to target because he's a key defender, but he was just using the ball really well, intercepting amazingly. And I will say that he's only been scoring poorly in the last sort of couple of months. It's due to a lot of tags, right? Obviously, the injury that we can rule that one out. That's no concern. But even a 95, we're happy to cop that. He copped the attention from a boss in that game. If you remember, if you watch a lot of football, you would definitely remember how frustrating that would have been for a Cal Wilkie just to have Voss on his case, pretty much hugging him the entire game and just playing that pest role. So you got to take that one on the chin. The Swans, tough matchup, but still did okay. 87, you got to take that every now and then. Got a bit of attention in the Giants game from Hogan, I believe. I can't fully recall, but it was definitely someone in that forward line that just didn't allow him any space, didn't allow him to run and intercept. So when he does have the freedom to run at the ball, he can put up big scores like the rest. So I'd be more than willing to jump on Okai Wilkie. I currently have him after trading him in a few weekends ago. And again, no Jack Sinclair means there's more ball available back there for a guy like a Wilkie. He may not take the kick ins, but he definitely receives a lot of them. So expecting him to continue that going forward. And looking at the teams he actually has coming up against him, I actually expect him to have quite a decent stretch of interception games. So obviously Essendon, if the ball ever comes back there, he should have an absolute field day. Port should be the same. He will be on a Georgiades, so it will be a bit of a tougher matchup. But Georgiades isn't that type of forward to pest and keep, they'll just play their own game and just try and beat each other at will, so he'll be fine there. You probably have Neil at the Cats. Again, I don't see that sort of role being played on a Wilkie. It'll be more of that, they'll try and beat each other, just try and lead each other up to the ball. And Wilkie will get on the right end of a lot of those as well. So next three are pretty good. Even the North is pretty strong as well. But then he does come into a couple tougher ones. Obviously, we saw he scored against the Swans earlier, and what did he score against Colton? He scored a 95 against Colton, so he should be fine for those two as well. So Wilkie is my number two at that much cheaper price. So if your team value isn't quite where you want it to be, and maybe you don't want to be spending that extra 200k on a sire, then I'd be more than happy to go with a Wilkie as that sort of gap filler, and then you can sort of evaluate, is he going okay? If not, then you can look to jump off him later on down the track. Number three, I do have Max Holmes. He's just a top six guy. I don't love his matchup this weekend, but his run to come is pretty strong. So the next fortnight, not the greatest, right? The Giants and the Lions is okay. It's not amazing, but it's definitely not the most groundbreaking. It's the run after that. Those next 4 to 6 weeks, really, to finish off the season is what you want him for. So if you're happy to just jump on him now, take a bit of, subpar scores while he's still under $1 million, and then just enjoy him so you know that you have him going forward, then I'd be more than happy to jump on Max Holmes this week. But again, I just don't see that massive score coming this weekend. I think he's playing more off halfback than he has been in some time, so it's probably not going to be as fruitful. We have seen some midfielders go quite big against the Lions in recent time, like a Heaney, just the last weekend. So I just don't know if I see Holmes going that big. But again, as I mentioned, if you want him for this run, there's no harm in getting him now. So he is number three. Number four, I still have Luke Parker. I regret not getting him in last weekend, as I had him in all week, but he's gone back to back 110s. Yes, you can argue you've missed two of the better matchups he has, but it doesn't stop there for a Luke Parker. Just look at the matchups. Port's a mediocre one, but that's fine. But then he goes Pies, Melbourne, who's the best matchup for defenders at the stage. St Kilda, we all know, is probably top five as well. Hawks are just outside the top five. The Western Bulldogs, number one, just like they're just giving up a lot of ball at the stage. So the run does not stop there. You still got 5 or 6 weeks worth of decent matchups for a Luke Parker, so I'd still absolutely be fine grabbing him this weekend at that cheaper price. But again, I do prefer a guy like a Wilkie who is 50k cheaper back there. So that's just where I sort of sit. And then number five, to round up my top five there, I've got Nick Newman. He's been in some decent form recently. He's gone 3 tons of his last four. Surprisingly, the one that he probably should have turned up in, he didn't against Essendon. But yeah, Carlton obviously returning to some form. He's getting a lot of the ball back there, and they are allowed to chip it around a little bit more. So that's always a bit of a positive. But the matchup, expecting him to go big in this one. Richmond, we know, are a very fruitful matchup, so it could be a bit of a pop score for you. Even the Hawks next week should be pretty okay. Again, they're a pretty nice matchup. I'll show you the matchups here. Why not? I've got it open. Hawks in the last 10 are sort of middle of the table. They are a positive matchup, but just barely. If we go to last 5, I think they're even better from memory. Yeah, they're +4, so they're just becoming easier. So top 5 for designated kick-out players. What else did he had? He had Collingwood. So if we go back to here, last 5, Collingwood are slightly negative matchup, but that for most of the season they have been pretty positive matchup. So wouldn't expect that to last too long. In the last 10, they are +5. So you can see how it changes very, very quickly depending on who has faced them recently. I wouldn't say the Pies have typically noticeably changed their role or game style as such. So expecting him to have a pretty strong 3 weeks. And even from that point onwards, he's still got Saints and Bulldogs. But, as we get towards the end of the season, we can look to jump off these sort of guys. So that is my top 5 for the defenders. Some pretty fruitful options in there, I would say. A lot of them I expect could go big this week. So expecting some big scores this round. Yeah. Caleb Daniel, let's just talk about some others that I haven't mentioned, obviously, in my top 5. Caleb Daniel, it scares me, man. I know he's gone back to back 40 touches and gone 139 and 153 against some very good opponents. And as I mentioned with the Parker situation, the run still continues going really, really strong. It just scares me. He does this from time to time, and then he drops these lower 70s and 50s and whatnot. But how can I argue with a guy that's gone back to back 40 touches? Like, they clearly want the ball in his hands. They want him to have the ball at all times and they want him to use it. So, yeah, I won't stop you, but I struggle to recommend people to trade into him just knowing what he can do. So, yeah, it feels like a very similar situation that we had with Zach Fisher going back a few years ago now, where he was able to be that half backer and just sort of dominated back there. But he absolutely have a stinker one day and then get dropped the next. So I don't think Caleb Daniel's quite that sort of level. I don't see him being dropped because he is quite a good ball user. But yeah, it is sort of new heights for him, and that's what scares me the most about Caleb Daniel. So if you want to do it, I won't stop you, but I'm not going to recommend people to do it in my top 5. Josh Dacos, I'm just a no. You got the pop score last week, congrats, but that's not going to last very long, so I'm just a complete no now on that decision. Same with Houston, got the pop score, but yeah, I don't see that lasting very long. You traded him out for a reason. Whitfield, if you still don't have him, he's still an okay option, but he does have Fremantle, which is the toughest matchup rolling around. So I just think there are other better options that are cheaper, or you're just going up to an Asaya that most people don't have. So that's just where I sit with him. Same with Ash, very similar boat. He's been thrown in back in the midfield, so yeah, don't think he's one that I'd be trading into this weekend. The interesting one, I guess, is Windhager. So he put up a 110 when Jack Sinclair went down. Now, for me, looking back at this game, it wasn't due to him taking more of a halfback role. It was just due to, Western Bulldogs, they give up a lot of points, a lot of extra disposals. Windy's playing a lot of a inside mid role at this stage, alongside Hugo, alongside Max Hall and Jack McRae and those sort of guys, while Messiah isn't in that there at the moment. So he's playing more of that inside mid. So he's an okay option at 750k, but I wouldn't be trading into him thinking that he's going to get that distributor role off halfback due to Sinclair going down. I see him continue playing midfield, being that defensive guy, continuing that role rather than going up halfback. There's another guy that we'll talk about very shortly that I think will pick up a lot of the points from a Sinclair. So there are a fair few moving parts at St Kilda this weekend, and that's why they are such a great option going forward. So if you're looking for a cheaper option, whether it's a defender or a midfielder, Windhager is definitely an okay option. And that's probably where I'll finish it off. It is getting very unique at this stage. So we'll go into the midfielders. So midfielders a bit tougher this week, I would say. There's not a very clear options besides a select few at the top, but let's just talk about it anyway. So my top selection for the midfielders has to be Isaac Heaney. I don't know where he's at. He is down here. He is sub $1.1 million, so he is still at an okay price point. He is expensive, but it's Isaac Heaney, so we know how good he is. He's been on some ripping form recently. Some really big ceiling scores, has a really high floor as well. So even when he does competition, there's no need to worry about him. But he comes into one of the easiest matchups in the Western Bulldogs, so I definitely could see a big score coming from him this weekend. They don't typically tag, so I don't see any attention sort of coming to him, so they might just allow him to run free. And we know when he runs free, he can put up these absolute monsters like 163s, 140s, 120s. He does that regular. So he is my number one trade-in target for the midfielders, ahead of Bailey Smith. And that's partly due to he's 50k cheaper. He has the better matchup. Baz, he's obviously been ill recently. I don't factor that too much into the trade in. But I also like to look a bit more long term. For Baz specifically, he's got the Lions this weekend, which will be a pretty interesting game because Lions look to seem have to return to a bit of form, whether it was a blip or not whatnot. They looked a lot better after the bye than what they have in recent times. So this may be a bit of a tougher matchup for a Baz, but even saying that, we saw Isaac Heaney still put up a 120 odd against them, so I could still easily see Baz doing that sort of work. So I'm not saying not to trade in Baz, but I just still think I feel more comfortable trading into an Isaac Heaney this weekend. But following this week, this is where it starts to become a bit more of a tricky question. Is that he potentially has a Bedford tag against the Giants because they have been deploying that recently. They tagged all day last weekend. Then they go into Saints. Windhager's obviously there that can do that job. Maybe a Hugo. They have a couple of different options that they sort of run with. Melbourne are less likely to tag from that point onwards. They have a Thelstrup in that side or an Ed Langdon that could run with him. So those three are probably the flags for me that you probably get 1 week of, decent scoring. But from that point onwards, is he going to get some attention? So that's why I've sort of dropped him below on Isaac Heaney. There are just a few flags there for me that just raise him above. And yeah, but I'm still saying he's a great option because he's a guy that has gone at 120 so far this season. We know he has the biggest ceiling. He's a great captain option going forward each and every week. And yeah, he just seems to get it done each and every week. So I'm not going to scare you off from trading him in, but I'm just saying there are other options to look at if you just, if you look a little bit deeper. So Baz is my number two trading target for the week. Number three, I have to stop, hating on this guy, Noah Anderson. He just gets the job done each and every week for the last sort of 6 weeks. Hasn't dropped below 110 once in his last seven matchups, he's dropped below 100 or 110. So he is just getting it done in a lot of different facets, a lot of marks, a lot of cheaper stuff down halfback. So that's what we love as fantasy coaches. Doesn't need to be the ultimate ball user, and he's not getting much attention, which is a big positive because it seems like Matraka is getting a lot of that at the moment. So that's really positive signs for Noah Anderson. So if you want him, definitely go trade him in. But again, I still have a couple other guys just ahead of him that I have more confidence that will be consistent for the remainder of the year at where they're at. Number four, I have Earl Goulden. I still love him as a trade-in option, even though he wasn't the greatest last week. I think we've seen from history that he does have a poorer first game as he gets managed into it. His time on ground was still amazing. 77% is definitely better than what we probably would have expected, but I'm definitely expecting that sort of 80 to 85 plus going forward. And in a Western Bulldogs matchup, he should be absolutely a ripper. He is somehow nearly 12% owned, so if you wanted to trade into him, he is more of the unique option. So yeah, I still think he's a great option this weekend, and I could definitely see a pop score coming from him. And then number five, a cheaper option that has been finding some form recently is an Andrew Brayshaw. It is the riskier of the bunch because do we realistically see this lasting long term? You know, Sarong's probably been a bit of out of form recently and being managed quite heavily, and I could easily see that switching quite quickly. But you know, we can only go based off the form he's had recently: 132, 131, in some okay matchups. The next couple of matchups aren't great, I will say though. The Giants, do they look to tag? Who are they going to tag? Do they look to just go to the guy that has been dominating recently in the Brayshaw? Do they just go to the traditional Sarong who does typically cop most of the attention? And then James Jordan the week after. So, yeah, there are some flags with this one. That's why he's on the lower end, but he's 940k, so you can't argue too much with what you are looking to grab. But yeah, definitely here's an option there. So that's my top five. A couple of options I didn't speak about. Specifically, again, I'm avoiding all the DPP guys. Will Ashcroft, again, these are the trickiest players for me because I was happy to take that 152 on the chin, tough match. Oh, sorry, a real nice matchup, expecting that to happen. But then he does it. He backs it up against a really tough Sydney matchup, and it looked like the Lions were back to their sort of best. So, is this a return to some form going ahead? As you know, going ahead with these guys, it's tough to say. But all I know is that they're going into a Cats matchup where they may cop attention. They do have a Mullen at the disposal. So, does the Mullen go to a Will Ashcroft or does it go to a Neil? You know, there are options there. So, for me, I'm not super keen on trading into a Will Ashcroft at this stage. But yeah, definitely needs to come into some calculations going on from next week if he does continue this form because he's got Essendon, the Eagles, Port, and then, you know, even the Suns and the Pies are okay matchups as well. So, got to keep him on the radar, but not for me this weekend. The Bond, if you don't have him, I just going to a James Jordan tag. I just don't see it being that fruitful for him. Has he played Sydney before? He did. He put up 114 with 2 goals. So that's pretty good, but nothing amazing. So again, I'm just willing to let that one slide through to the keeper for a little while. Butters, if you don't have him, yeah, go for it. He's sub $1 million and he is up against North, so yeah, keep an eye on attention there. He did only put up a 92 against them earlier in the season. And Day, I still think is an okay option, but I just think we gotta lower our expectations because the time on ground really isn't rising nearly as much. And looking at the run forward, so when he starts to get to these Richmond, Essendon, North sort of matchups where Hawthorn are probably expecting to win quite comfortably, they may look to rest him for a large portion of the game. So that's that is maybe the concern with the Will Day going forward, that they are going to continue to manage him as best as possible. But we know he can score very, very well. So he's still an option, but obviously of the riskier end. And that's probably where I'll finish it off in the midfield. Let's just keep moving on as quickly as possible. Don't want to make this video too long because, you know, it's getting towards the end of the season. I know most people's fantasy attention span really drops off this time of year. So, yeah, we'll keep it as minimal as possible. Sorry, let's go to the rucks. Now, rucks are interesting because I do not recommend trading in the rucks whatsoever. I have not got a single ruckman that I recommend trading into this weekend. So, and that's unusual because Royal Marshall is number one, but he is in my forward category. Obviously, he's a much better in our forward line because again, our ruck line is pretty strong where we have guys that are averaging, you know, in the hundreds, if not, you know, 110 areas with Gorn and Jackson. So Royal Marshall is much more suited in your forward line than in the ruck line. So don't be trading him in there unless it's for a short period of time. You want him in your forward line going forward. So keep that in mind. But the reason why I don't encourage people to trade into rucks this week is because let's look at the options. Gorn, he has a tough matchup against Hawthorn. He only put up an 84 against them earlier in the season, around 10, only what that 7 weeks ago. So it's not a great one to be trading into. And again, that goes to my strategy of trading in these guys that are going to go massive the week you trade them in. You want to try and maximize that scoring each and every week, and I don't see that coming from Max Gorn this weekend. So for that one, I would not be doing that. Jackson, there are very much concerns that obviously with Sean Darcy back now, his ruck time has been cut drastically. He's being managed quite heavily as well. His time on ground has definitely dropped off, and that role has definitely shifted. So I'd have concerns trading into him, even though his run is probably on the better side of things. Obviously, the Giants are a really strong matchup for Ruckman, so on paper, he should be really strong. But now that Sean Darcy is back, there are just concerns there for me, so I wouldn't be trading it to him. Grundy, he's potentially still got Laddams beside him, so just not going anywhere near that, and he's probably more of a trade out than trade in. English, I'm still waiting on this one to really return back to what we know English can be, but he's obviously he returned to some form a little bit on round 15, so he's maybe the only one you could take a punt on to to really light it up at that very cheaper price. But I'm still waiting another week to just have a look at it. It's not the best matchup going into it with against a Grundy and potentially a Laddams. But yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on him. Next week may be the option. If he shows something in this matchup against the Swans, then there's all systems go against the Eagles, and he can absolutely dominate in that one. So that's what I'm waiting for. And that's pretty much it. Those are top guys that we're sort of looking at. Cheston Cherry, obviously returning from injury. I don't think I'll be going there either. And that's sort of the top end guys that we're looking at. So realistically, none of the top line guys that are relevant to us are guys that we really want in our side. So I don't think I'm trading in the ruck line this week, and I don't encourage anyone else to do so either. So bit of an unusual week in that category. Now, in the forward line, now this is some of the question marks that I've been getting so far this week is do I get in a Dersma or do I get, sorry, not a Dersma, a Durham, or do I get in a Rowan Marshall? Now, as you can see in my forward category there in the top five, I do have Sam Durham as my number one forward trading option this week because there's a couple of reasons. Realistically, their price point doesn't really matter to me. If 18K makes the world of difference to you, then go the cheaper one. It is what it is. I'd be happy with either one. But for me, Durham has a much lower break even of 40. The role is pretty good where he's playing full time mid. Obviously, the concerns with Caldwell and Parrish back in the side meant nothing. He still put up a 108, and honestly, that should have been bigger. He really had a poor second half where he just got rested a fair bit in that third quarter and just couldn't really find a huge amount of the ball in the last. But he's going to go up a lot quicker in terms of break even in terms of price point this week over Ron Marshall, who still has a break even of in the 83s and has a tougher matchup against Essendon, who we know have been very tough for Ruckman so far this season. So I think you'll get more scoring this week from a Sam Durham, and you'll get more cash generation from a Sam Durham this week over Ron Marshall. But if I'm looking long term, I think Rowan Marshall will probably outscore a Sam Durham, but I think you want both. So I think just if you can only get one this week, I think you get Sam Durham, and then you get Rowan Marshall the week after when he comes up against a Jordan Sweet, who he should be absolutely fine against, and then obviously he goes into the Cats matchup, which is absolutely fruitful. So uh, you'll be much more better off going with a Sam Durham this weekend than going in Rowan Marshall the week after. So that's answering the question that a lot of people have been asking, just around those two. So that's my order of categories for those two. So that's my top two discussed. I guess diving a little bit more deeper into a Royal Marshall, obviously he's lowly owned 8%, but we have got confirmation that TDK is out for 4 weeks at a minimum. So that is 4 weeks of full time ruck that we're going to get from Royal Marshall, which we know he can be the best fantasy scorer in the league, given he has that pedigree. So he's averaged 117 in the past and 114, I believe. So if he can get anything back to that, then we're absolutely laughing. He is a very safe option. Don't get me wrong. He's 750k, so priced at about 80. And we know even if he is slightly injured, obviously there is concerns about that shoulder. I still see him being a 85 to 90 guy minimum with an injury. So that shows you how safe I think he is at this price point. That it can't really go too wrong, but the sky is the limit for this guy. So I think he's definitely someone that we want in our sides, and he is someone that I am trading into this weekend. So that is those two discussed. Number three is the guy that I was sort of alluding to earlier that really took a lot of the points when a Jack Sinclair went down. So if I take you over to here to the kicking breakdown of St Kilda for last round, when Sinclair went down, obviously he had zero kick-ins. Look who jumped up and took all the kick-ins, pretty much. Obviously, Nasiah was still back there, still taking a fair bit, but the backup guy became Bradley Hill. So I think he's a pretty good option to trade into going forward. Great matchup, as mentioned, with Essendon, so he should have an absolute field day. He's 800k, so he is on the cheaper end. Not super cheap, but still definitely cheaper than a lot of the others. And that role should be pretty fruitful. Like I said, he has the market share of Jack Sinclair's points, so there's points there for him to have. So I could easily see him being a top 6 forward going for the remainder of the season with Jack Sinclair out, and him assumingly got to take a lot more kick-ins and take a lot more of that responsibility off halfback, in lieu of Sinclair being out. So I think he's definitely someone that you could definitely be trading into. Only 100 people are doing it, which is interesting. He's 4% owned. So, again, if you're looking for a bit more of a pod, he's definitely one that I'd potentially be looking at. But we do have a lot of other decent options to look at this stage. So that's just a little bit on Bradley Hill. I can't really give you too much more on that. The run isn't amazing, so that's something that does work against him. And the next two, again, should be okay, but then from that point onwards, it comes a bit tricky. So if it was a bit more juicy, then he definitely probably would be higher up on this list, but just not quite yet. But then to round up my top five, I've got Jordan DeGoey and Chad Warner at number five. Just top end guys that that are performing really well. Jordan DeGoey, I definitely are loving what he's doing. He's got a great matchup again this weekend, but he is expensive. So if you are just looking to solidify and complete your team, then these guys obviously need to be in your side. And then Chad Warner, great matchup, really good form over the last 4 weeks. So yeah, I can't deny it any longer that he is a decent option. So that is my forwards. What else do I need to do? I need to do my top five. I need to do the rookies before I forget. So let's go over to the rookies. There's not a whole lot of rookie options, I will say, this week. So let's just quickly change this over to 400k because again, we don't want to be trading into too much more than that. So my rankings for the rookies this week is still I've got Marcus Herbert as the number one option. I just love what the role he's playing. He's very consistent back there. He is 312k now though, so you are paying a bit of a premium. But if you are struggling for options this weekend and you don't have him, then obviously he's still my number one. He does have nearly the lowest break even of the game. Number two, though, I do have Josh Goda. He's coming at a good time with having the defender status. He's someone that North have always wanted in their side, but he does have a very injury riddled history. I think listening back to the podcast, it's not the podcast, the broadcast of that game is he hadn't played for 900 games, 900 days or something like that. So he had been out for an extended period of time. Um, Let me just go back. Maybe I'm wrong because he did play back in 2024, so I don't think that's 900 days. Just using basic math, so maybe it was 600 days. So who knows? But yeah, he's someone that they want in their side playing for them, but he just does have some injuries concerns going on all the time. So there is risk of trading him into because it could very well get injured very quickly. But he's a cheap defender option that a lot of us are needing, so definitely could encourage a lot of people to trade into him. And then number three, I do have Jack Dalton, who does have the lowest break even of the game, -12. Put up the 73 on the weekend, kicking 2 goals, and he just looked amazing. As a Hawks man, I was really impressed with what he was able to do. He looks to me have solidified that wing role at Hawks on the opposite side of Massimo over guys like Morrison and whatnot. So I think his job security is going to be pretty strong going forward, and he just offered a lot. So yeah, I'm pretty confident with him being in the side long term. So if you already have the two top guys, maybe you traded into Herbert 2 weeks ago, and you've already got to go to last week, then I'd 100% be trading into a Dalton as that third best option. But besides that, there's not many other options that I'd be looking at realistically. Hopefully, Artemis gets named very shortly. So if you are just looking to bank as much coin as you want to, and you don't love the options that you're trading into, then just get the red dot rookie in a Artemis, and then we think he'll come good at some stage in the next couple of weeks. So I'd be happy to trade into that one as well. But that's pretty much about it for the rookies. I'm not super keen. I think Swaddling will get dropped this week. Hill is a small forward replacing Watson for the week, so I wouldn't be going there. His job security would be very fringe. Um, yeah, that's pretty much about it realistically. So yeah, we'll finish off there. Let's just do my top five, and then we will get out of here and let you guys do what you need to do for the rest of your Wednesday afternoon. So move that one. So let's do my top five real quick. I think it's pretty obvious who they are. There's some pretty big names in there. Nasai is my number one. Just get him in. You just enjoy it for the next 2 weeks. Number two, I do still have Sam Durham over obviously Rowan Marshall. It would be very hypocritical of me to put Rowan Marshall at number two over Sam Durham, even though I think Sam Durham is the better option this week. So Sam Durham is number two. Number three, Rowan Marshall should be great. So great going him. Then I have Isaac Heaney at number four, still great option going forward, and then Baz at number five. So no rookies feature in my top five this week. I don't think there is that clear cut rookie option to grab. So I've gone a lot of premiums and guys that are cheaper on the cheaper end. So that is my top five for the week. So that is trade mode essentially. That's all done. Just a little cap off the video. Obviously, my trades have not changed. So I've still gone Daniels to Royal Marshall and then Ison to Wang. It only leaves me 8k going into the week next week, which is not amazing. But again, this is sort of the time of year now that it's not going to take much for me to go maybe a Farrow and a Banks up to a Holmes or something like that next weekend. So that's just forecasting of what I could potentially do. So yeah, that's the team. Only got one rookie on field this week, but still obviously have some holes to field. Ruckline's shot. Having Dersma in my forward line and same with Sheasel in my midfield line isn't amazing. So, but yeah, I'm okay with it. Today, defensive line's pretty shot really, compared to what it was at the start of the season. It's real in desperate need of some makeover. So, yeah, but that's enough about my team. That's where we're at. So yeah, hopefully you guys have enjoyed today's video. Please leave a like, subscribe, and do all those great things as you always do. Besides that, I will catch you tomorrow for captains. It should be an interesting one. So see you then. Cheers, guys.